Motorcycle riding is thrilling, but it comes with a dark, often overlooked reality. Throughout history, countless riders, celebrities, athletes, and everyday enthusiasts have met tragic ends on the road. These incidents, sudden and brutal, remind us that behind the roar of engines lies a vulnerability that can turn exhilaration into heartbreak. The British Superbike's crash at Olton Park in 2025 stands as one of the most tragic and sobering events in recent motorcycle racing history, a reminder that even the most carefully planned competitions carry inherent risks. The incident occurred during the opening seconds of a supersport race when riders were tightly packed and accelerating hard toward the first corner. What should have been an exhilarating start quickly turned catastrophic when a single fall triggered a chain reaction, causing 11 bikes to collide violently within seconds. Riders were thrown from their machines, some skidding across the asphalt while others were trapped among the wreckage. The track immediately became a scene of chaos, with marshals, medics, and safety personnel rushing to assist and attend to injuries. Spectators and team members watched in stunned silence, the usual excitement of race day replaced by tension and fear. The race was immediately stopped, and the remainder of the weekend was canceled in the wake of the tragedy. For those present, the crash stripped the glamour and thrill from the sport, leaving a stark reminder of how unforgiving motorcycle racing can be. The combination of high speed, limited reaction time, and the tightly packed riders created a situation where even the best training, protective gear, and experience could not prevent the worst outcome. In the moments following the crash, the reality of the sport's dangers became undeniable, leaving a lasting impression on everyone involved, from riders and teams to spectators and officials. The human cost of the crash was immediate and devastating. Owen Jenner, only 21 years old, suffered fatal head injuries at the scene, despite the rapid intervention of track medics and emergency teams. He was regarded as one of the sport's most promising young talents, with a career that many believed would reach international heights. His death shocked the racing community, leaving teammates, friends, and fans struggling to come to terms with the loss of such a young life. Shane Richardson, 29 years old, also succumbed to injuries sustained in the crash, suffering severe chest trauma and later dying while being transported to hospital. The deaths of these two riders highlighted the extreme dangers inherent in motorcycle racing, especially during the early stages of a race when competitors are bunched together and little room exists to avoid an accident. Other riders involved in the pileup sustained injuries ranging from minor bruises to serious trauma, with at least one competitor requiring prolonged hospitalization. The incident illustrated how quickly a situation can escalate on the track and how fragile safety measures can become when speed, proximity, and momentum combine. Even with helmets, protective suits, and track safety standards designed to minimize risk, the forces involved in such high-speed collisions often leave little chance for survival, demonstrating that the sport is always a balance between skill, courage, and unavoidable danger. In the weeks and months following the crash, official investigations and inquests confirmed that both Jenner and Richardson suffered injuries that were unsurvivable and that all required safety procedures and inspections had been correctly followed. While the findings provided factual clarity, they could not lessen the grief experienced by family, friends, teammates, and the broader racing community. Tributes poured in from around the world, honoring the skill, dedication, and character of both riders, recognizing not only their accomplishments on track, but also their commitment to the sport and the respect they earned from peers. The crash prompted renewed discussions within motorcycle racing about first corner congestion, race formats, and ways to further improve safety without diminishing the fundamental challenges of the sport. Survivors of the incident, medics, and officials also carried emotional and psychological impacts from witnessing such a violent event, illustrating the far-reaching effects of tragedies in high-speed competitions. While motorcycle racing will continue to attract riders and fans, the Olton Park tragedy serves as a lasting reminder of the sport's inherent risks and the fragility of life on the track. Every race carries consequences far beyond lap times and checkered flags, and the memory of Owen Jenner and Shane Richardson stands as a solemn testament to the courage of those who ride at the limits of human skill and bravery. In the world of motorcycle racing, where speed, skill, and nerves of steel define champions, the Sofuolu name holds a legendary place in Turkey. Sinan Sofuolu, the eldest of the Sofuolu brothers, was more than just Kenan Sofuolu's sibling. He was a formidable racer in his own right, a man who had already carved out a name for himself on the Turkish national circuits. Born into a family where the roar of engines and the thrill of racing were a way of life, Sinan's passion for motorcycles began early. He had tasted success on multiple occasions, winning Turkish national championships and even taking a wildcard entry in the 250cc class at the 2006 Turkish MotoGP round. His style on the track was precise, calculated, and fearless, reflecting the years of dedication and countless hours spent training on circuits where every turn could make or break a career. The racing world admired his skill, his commitment, and the way he carried the Sofuolu legacy forward. Yet, in the spring of 2008, the very arena that had brought him triumph would also witness his final, tragic ride. On May 9, 2008, Sinan was at the İzmit Körfez circuit, preparing for the Turkey Motorcycle Championship. It was a routine training session on a sunny afternoon, the kind where racers push themselves to the limits, testing lines, brakes, and throttle control. But in the blink of an eye, precision gave way to disaster. Approaching one of the circuit's corners, Sinan lost control of his motorcycle. Reports suggest the bike tumbled violently after he fell, an uncontrollable chain of events that left the seasoned racer with catastrophic injuries. The immediate result was a broken neck, trauma to the base of his skull, and severe pulmonary hemorrhage. The severity of the crash was unmistakable, and even for those accustomed to witnessing high-speed accidents, the scene was harrowing. Emergency medical personnel rushed him to a local hospital, and seeing the gravity of his condition, he was transferred to Kocaeli University Hospital for specialized care. Surgeons fought to save him, performing emergency procedures in an attempt to stabilize his injuries. But despite their best efforts, Sinan's body could not recover from the trauma inflicted in those critical seconds on the track. Later that day, the Turkish racing community was struck with news that no one wanted to hear. Sinan Sofuolu had passed away at the age of 25. His death was not just a personal loss for his family, but a profound moment of grief for Turkish motorsport, which mourned the loss of a talented racer taken too soon. The Sofuolu family, already familiar with tragedy having lost another brother, Bahattin, in a road accident years earlier, faced unimaginable pain. Kenan, who would later become a supersport world champion, spoke about the enduring shadow of Sinan's death over his own racing career, acknowledging that the memory of his brother's accident was a constant reminder of both the risks inherent to the sport and the fragility of life. The legacy of Sinan Sofuolu is not merely in statistics or championships, but in the inspiration he left behind. He embodied the courage, determination, and passion that define the spirit of motorcycle racing. His life reminds us that even in pursuit of greatness, the line between triumph and tragedy is often razor thin, and the roar of engines that brings exhilaration can sometimes echo a heartbreaking silence. The 2008 training crash at Körfez circuit remains a somber chapter in Turkey's racing history, a reminder of the perils faced by riders and the human cost behind the spectacle of high-speed sport. Sinan's name endures not just in records, but in the respect and remembrance of those who knew his skill, admired his dedication, and felt the impact of his untimely departure from the racing world. His story serves as a solemn testament to the passion and risks that define professional motorcycle racing, a sport where the thrill of speed is inseparable from danger. Today, the Sofuolu family continues to honor his memory, carrying forward the love of racing that Sinan helped cultivate and inspiring new generations of riders in Turkey and beyond. While his career was tragically cut short, the mark he left on the sport and the admiration he earned from fellow racers and fans alike ensure that Sinan Sofuolu will always be remembered not just as a talented competitor, but as a symbol of courage, dedication, and the fragile brilliance of life lived at full speed. Duane Allman's life was a blazing guitar solo, fast, brilliant, and far too short. And like a solo gone wrong, it ended in tragedy on the streets of Macon, Georgia, on October 29, 1971. At just 24 years old, Duane was already a legend, the co-founder of the Allman Brothers Band, and a virtuoso whose slide guitar playing had earned him a place among the greatest musicians of his time. On that fateful autumn day, his musical genius collided with fate in a way that no chord could save him from. Riding his Harley-Davidson Sportster down Hillcrest Avenue, Duane encountered a sudden and deadly obstruction, a flatbed truck carrying a crane that had stopped unexpectedly in his path. In a split second, he tried to swerve and avoid the collision, but the combination of speed, surprise, and gravity had other plans. Accounts described the motorcycle being thrown from under him, landing on top of him, and skidding for roughly 90 feet, leaving Duane pinned beneath it. Witnesses later recalled the horror of the scene. A young man full of life and creative fire, suddenly trapped and gravely injured. Emergency responders rushed him to a local hospital, but the injuries were catastrophic. Massive internal trauma and crushed organs left doctors with little hope. Despite frantic efforts, Duane Allman passed away that evening. A casualty not of a slow fade, but of a sudden, violent interruption of a life that seemed destined to shape music history. The irony of Duane's death is haunting. He had been creating some of the most soulful, enduring music of the era, and yet his life ended in a flash, as unpredictable and unforgiving as a sudden key change in the middle of a solo. At the time, the Allman Brothers Band was at a pivotal moment, writing the success of their live album at Fillmore East, an album that captured the raw energy and improvisational magic that made them famous. The shock of losing Duane sent ripples not just through the band, but through the entire rock community. Fellow musicians, fans, and critics were stunned by the abruptness of the loss. It was a reminder that no level of talent or fame could shield someone from the randomness of life, and that sometimes the brightest flames burn the fastest. The tragedy also had a lasting echo within the band itself. A year later, bassist Barry Oakley would die in a nearly identical motorcycle crash just a few blocks away from Duane's accident site, deepening the sense of haunting inevitability surrounding the Allman Brothers' early years. These events shaped the narrative of the band, leaving grief and homage intertwined in their music and legacy. Even in death, Duane Allman's story refuses to be quiet or forgotten. His influence permeates countless musicians' work, and his recordings continue to inspire guitarists and music lovers decades later. The band's subsequent album, Eat a Peach, became both a tribute to Duane's talent and a testament to resilience, showing that even amidst loss, creativity could endure. Walking through the streets of Macon today, one can almost feel the lingering presence of the young guitarist whose life ended so abruptly, but whose music remains immortal. It is a sobering tale, a reminder of the fragility of life and the indiscriminate nature of tragedy, but also a celebration of what he accomplished in a life far shorter than anyone expected. Duane Allman's death is not just a cautionary story about motorcycles and risk. It is a narrative about brilliance cut short, about the fleeting intersection of life, art, and fate. In remembering him, we remember the joy he brought through his guitar, the depth of feeling in his slide, and the legacy of a musician whose life, though brief, was lived with intensity, passion, and purpose. Though his Harley may have claimed him, his music, spirit, and influence continue to ride, resonating with anyone who listens closely enough to hear a guitar solo that never truly ends. Lane Rogers, known to his fans as Blake Mitchell, was a prominent OnlyFans creator and social media personality who, at just 31, had built a significant presence online. He was known for his charisma, approachability, and the unique way he connected with his audience. His content often went beyond the superficial, showing glimpses of his personality, humor, and creativity, which made him stand out in a crowded digital landscape. While his online persona was full of energy and engagement, Lane also had passions outside the screen, most notably his love for motorcycles. Riding offered him a sense of freedom and exhilaration that no other pursuit could match. For Lane, the The thrill of the open road complemented the high-energy world of social media, and it was a part of who he was, a way for him to embrace life fully and experience it on his own terms. Unfortunately, this passion would also be the setting of his final moments. In December 2025, while riding his motorcycle in Oxnard, California, Lane was involved in a tragic collision with a box truck. The accident was sudden and fatal. Emergency services confirmed that Lane suffered severe blunt force trauma and was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators reported that the box truck driver remained at the scene and cooperated fully with authorities, and there were no indications of alcohol or drugs contributing to the crash. The incident was officially ruled an accident, a devastating reminder of how fragile life can be, even for someone who seemed larger than life. The news of Lane's death sent shockwaves through his fan base and the social media community. Tributes poured in from all corners, with fans and fellow creators sharing memories of his humor, warmth, and the authenticity that defined his presence online. People remembered him not only for his work, but for the way he made those around him feel seen and valued, highlighting the impact he had beyond the digital content he produced. Beyond the personal grief, Lane's death also sparked reflection on the risks inherent in motorcycle riding and the importance of safety, reminding the public of how quickly an everyday activity can turn tragic. His story became a point of discussion not just among his followers, but in broader conversations about the pressures and vulnerabilities of living life in the public eye, where personal passions and public personas intersect in ways that are both inspiring and perilous. In a world that often focuses on fleeting fame, Lane's life and untimely death reminded people of the very real human beings behind the screens, whose choices and passions are as complex and unpredictable as anyone else's. While Lane Rogers' life was cut short, his legacy remains in the content he created, the connections he built, and the joy he brought to thousands of people online. His story is a mix of ambition, passion, and the vulnerabilities that come with pursuing one's true interests. It underscores the duality of a life lived publicly and privately, where moments of exhilaration are sometimes accompanied by unforeseen risk. Lane's passing serves as a sobering example of the unpredictable nature of life, and it calls attention to both the impact of social media personalities and the real-world consequences of high-risk passions. His fans continue to honor his memory, celebrating his contributions and the vibrant, engaging personality that made him stand out. Though his life ended far too soon, Lane Rogers' influence and presence remain, leaving a lasting imprint on those who followed him and those who admired the authenticity with which he lived his life. His story is both a cautionary tale and a celebration of living fully, a reminder that even in the digital age, the fragility of life is universal, and every life lived with passion leaves a mark that transcends the screen. T.E. Lawrence, better known to the world as Lawrence of Arabia, was a man of almost mythic proportions, a British Army officer, archaeologist, writer, and, for a time, a living legend. He had led daring campaigns in the Middle East during World War I, inspired the Arab Revolt, and then retreated into a quieter, almost anonymous life in England. By the mid-1930s, Lawrence had sought solace in the Dorset countryside, renting a small cottage at Clouds Hill near Bovington. He was, by all accounts, a man of contradictions, restless yet introspective, heroic yet painfully human. On the afternoon of May 13, 1935, that humanity collided tragically with circumstance when he set out on one of his beloved motorcycles, a Bro Superior SS100, known as the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles. Motorcycling was one of the few pleasures that gave him a sense of freedom, a way to escape the weight of fame and his memories of war. But that freedom would soon prove cruelly fragile. While riding along a narrow Dorset lane, Lawrence encountered two boys on bicycles crossing the road. In an effort to avoid hitting them, he swerved sharply, lost control of his bike, and was thrown over the handlebars. The impact was catastrophic. His skull was fractured, and he was knocked unconscious. The accident itself seemed almost surreal, a brief, chaotic moment that ended the life of one of the 20th century's most iconic figures. Lawrence was quickly transported to the nearby military hospital at Bovington Camp, where doctors worked tirelessly, but despite their efforts, he never regained consciousness. 6 days later, on May 19, 1935, at the age of 46, T.E. Lawrence passed away, leaving behind a world captivated by his daring exploits and still fascinated by his enigmatic personality. The news of his death shocked many. Here was a man who had survived bullets, explosives, and the deserts of Arabia, only to meet his end in a quiet English countryside on a sunny spring afternoon, victims of nothing more than chance and human vulnerability. The tragedy of Lawrence's death had far-reaching implications beyond the personal loss. At the time, motorcycle helmets were not standard. Lawrence was not wearing one when he crashed. His head injuries highlighted the lethal risks of riding without protection. The neurosurgeon who treated him, Hugh Cairns, would later use this experience to study head injuries among motorcyclists, particularly soldiers during wartime. Cairns' work contributed significantly to the development of safety standards and the eventual widespread adoption of crash helmets in both military and civilian contexts. In this sense, Lawrence's death, while tragic, indirectly saved countless lives in the decades that followed. It was a stark reminder that even those who seem invincible war heroes, public icons, brilliant strategists are vulnerable to life's unpredictable hazards. While the public mourned the loss of the man who had become a symbol of daring and adventure, his passing also underscored the fragility of life, the randomness of fate, and the human cost hidden behind the stories of legend. In Dorset, near the site of the crash, memorial stones now mark the place where the legendary figure's life ended, drawing visitors who wish to pay homage and reflect on the fleeting nature of human existence. Even in death, Lawrence's story continues to captivate, blending myth and reality in ways that are almost literary in themselves. Biographers and historians debate the nature of his final years, his retreat from public life, and the precise details of the accident. Documentaries and articles revisit that fateful day, reconstructing the scene and pondering how a man who had once danced with danger in the deserts of Arabia could fall victim to a seemingly ordinary road hazard. The accident is often recounted with a mix of sadness and reflection, an acknowledgement that the extraordinary can be undone by the mundane. Yet, the life of T.E. Lawrence is not defined solely by his death. It is a story of courage, intellect, and the pursuit of purpose in an often chaotic world. His writings, including 7 Pillars of Wisdom, and his military exploits remain influential, ensuring that the man who lived at the edge of legend continues to inspire generations. In the end, Lawrence's death is both tragic and instructive, a reminder that even heroes are mortal, that life's fragility is universal, and that legacy is forged as much in deeds and ideas as in the circumstances of one's passing. The Dorset lane where he swerved that spring afternoon remains quiet, but the echo of his life, the brilliance, the daring, the complexity resonates still, a fitting tribute to a man who, in so many ways, lived life at full throttle.